Today I'm going to talk about the concept of karma in layman terms. Let me explain this from the concept of science and how we can relate this to science and the science of brain. So karma, usually what people say is that every action that you take has a certain reaction or a consequence. So people usually, are not able to relate to this because it is from a very spiritual aspect. But let me give you an example which you can really relate to in everyday life. Let's say you tell yourself that you are an introvert, or you feel that you are an introvert. Now, when you have a thought like that, it forms a certain connection in your brain. Because you've had that thought, and let's say now you're identifying with that thought, you're believing that thought, you are going to act like an introvert in any external situation. Now, when you act like that in an external situation, those connections in your brain become stronger. Now, when your friends observe you being an introvert, they come and tell you, "Oh man, I think you are an introvert." Now, the connection becomes even more strong. Now, you see what's happening here is that your brain is forming a pattern. When those connections become stronger, it becomes a pattern, it becomes a compulsion. So now in any situation, you are going to act like an introvert. But if we live consciously, then what we can do is we don't need to identify with our thoughts. Whenever we get a thought, let's say I get a thought I'm an introvert, I don't need to believe it because I'm consciously acting in every situation. Now what that does is the connections in our brain don't become as strong because I'm not labeling myself with a certain name, a certain identity. Now you might ask how this is related to karma. It is related to karma because when you form those strong connections in your brain, the reaction of those strong connections is that you get molded and you fit into a certain bucket, and you're always going to behave that way in every situation in life. But if you don't label yourself, then you can act consciously in any situation life throws at you. So I feel that this is exactly like karma, but in an everyday sense, in everyday life. Because karma means what? Your actions lead to certain reactions. Your actions could be your thought or your physical actions. In this case of this introvert example, your actions are your thoughts. When you're thinking, when you're overthinking about this concept, the connections are becoming stronger. And now those reactions, the consequences of those actions or those thoughts is that you are going to behave like an introvert in an external world. So hope this explains to you. And that's why I keep saying living consciously is very important. Living consciously in everyday life is really important. So this is karma explained in very simple terms. I know this is not the complete definition, but this is the simplest form of definition that I could give you. Let me know in the comments what you feel about this definition, and what do you think about labeling yourself, about forming these strong connections in your brain. Do you think that affects your real life? Do you think that affects the way you behave in front of other people?